Aye, please. Ordinance number 23-16, it does not pass.
New tonight, the Mandeville City Council votes to stall the development of a multi-million-dollar retirement community on the lakefront. Good evening, I'm Meg Gatto.
And I'm Lauren McCoy. After a summer of debate, the City Council votes to keep the land east of the causeway vacant.
Maddie Kurth is on the North Shore with the latest from the council meeting on Sucette Harbor.
All summer long, the Mandeville City Council has heard from residents about the impact Sucette Harbor could have on light, noise, and density along the lakefront. In July, major slashes to the site's ordinance by Councilmember Jason Zuckerman cut the proposed number of apartment units from 178 to 90. That was a move the developers did not take lightly. Sucette Harbor planned to bring those 90 senior living apartments, a hotel, a restaurant, an event space, and a marina to around 15 acres of vacant land in the Mariners Village area just east of the causeway. On the table tonight was the approval of all the ordinance changes, which is like a roadmap for what can and cannot be built at the site. This controls everything from the number of parking spaces on the site to the type of electrical supplies the builders could use. Dissent from residents came in the form of red clothing. Those in opposition of the retirement community dressed alike, a visual representation of their feelings. But ultimately, the council decision to toss the ordinance completely has sent developers back to the drawing board. At the meeting, we heard from supporters of the site, an opinion not represented much throughout this process.
Voted down because all the different rules they're putting in. That's not going to be another developer coming along in my lifetime. And I've been there 30 years waiting for this, okay? And people who live there understand how much of an improvement this will be to the area.
Having moved there recently, I totally agree. It's in disrepair and it's getting worse. But I don't feel that building a hotel is a solution to that problem.
Bill Hoffman, the president of Woodward Interests and the developer of the site, opened the meeting by saying his company could not provide a site plan with only 90 units, that each part of their proposal depends on the other. As for what's next, LSU Health was donated the land by the Copeland family, and their lease with Woodward Interests is still active. Developers tell me they are extremely disappointed with the way this has played out all summer, and now they are weighing all of their options. Reporting in Mandeville, Maddie Kurth, Fox 8, Local First.